Video. In this video we are going to cover on how we are going to install the ArgoCD, and then we are going to install an application using the ArgoCD. Now ArgoCD is majorly used for implementing the GitOps framework, in which you can directly make the changes and those changes will then be synced by the ArgoCD. So in this particular video we are going to spin up a EKS cluster, and then we are going to install ArgoCD to it, and then we are going to run one application into the EKS cluster using the ArgoCD. So that's what our goal is for this video, and that's what we are going to do. This entire video is based on the practical, so you can see and follow up on your own setup. Now for this setup we just require an AWS account, and that should be capable of creating the EKS cluster. That's what the requirement for this tutorial is. So let's get started. Okay, so right now this is a very fresh account, it does not have anything, so we are going to do everything from the scratch and create the entire ArgoCD deployment and run the application using the ArgoCD itself, and then test also. Okay, so let's start. So what we are going to do is we are going to use a Cloud Shell for spinning up our EKS cluster. Okay, so you can start the Cloud Shell by clicking on this symbol, and once you click on it, it's going to provision a Cloud Shell for you. Now the Cloud Shell is getting created. Now once you create the Cloud Shell, you have to make sure the kubectl is there on your machine. Okay, now what we can do is we can simply check by doing kubectl version. So what we see is the Cloud Shell is already having the kubectl installed, so we don't need to install. If it's not there, then you have to go and download the latest version of the kubectl which matches to your EKS cluster. At the time of the recording, the EKS cluster version 1.30 is available, and the kubectl version also is 1.30, so that matches, and that's why we are going to follow with this default version. If there's a mismatch, you can go ahead and install the kubectl. That I'm not going to cover in this video, but you can easily Google and download it from there. Okay, all right, now let's clear this up. Next thing, in order to spin up a EKS cluster, we are going to use the EKSCTL to provision the cluster. Now we have covered this in our previous video, so here I'm just going to download and install the EKSCTL on our machine first. Okay, so what you can do is you can directly download the EKSCTL. So I'm just going to download it from the GitHub itself. Okay, so let me just quickly download EKSCTL releases latest download, then we can say EKSCTL _$, and it will download for our relevant OS. Okay, _AMD 64.tar.gz. okay, so basically it's a tar file, and then we just want to extract the tar and install in /temp. okay, so that's the complete command. Just go and run this, and it should download the EKSCTL. Now we are going to move this from temp location where we downloaded this EKSCTL binary, and we are going to move this to the USR local bin, so that it's within our path and we can directly access it. So you can verify EKSCTL installation by saying EKSCTL version. If this returns the version, that means EKSCTL has been successfully installed on your machine. Now using this EKSCTL, we are going to create a EKS cluster. Okay, so we can simply say EKSCTL, and we can say create cluster for creating the cluster, and we can provide the cluster name. Suppose I will just say, suppose this is our for development environment, so I will say dev cluster. Okay, you can name it anything that you like. Okay, and I'm going to spin the version. Version should be 1.30. Okay, that's the latest version at the time of the recording. Then we specify the region in which we want to create this. So I will be spinning this up in the US East 1 region. Okay, and we are going to use the node group. So I'm just going to say node group name. Okay, this node group is basically, it's going to use the EC2 instances for creating our cluster. So basically the worker nodes will be the EC2 that we can see in our account, and master will be managed by the AWS, so we don't have to worry about the availability and all. Okay, so we just said standard workers, you can name it anything. Okay, then node type. Okay, usually in your account you will find that t3.micro instance is available for free, so we are going to just use that. And now there are multiple components which gets deployed with the ArgoCD, so we are going to say we are going to use at max 8 nodes. Okay, and the minimum number of nodes, okay, that we want is 1. Okay, so it will automatically spin that if it's not getting used, and then we say maximum nodes that we want is again 8. Okay, and we will say it's a managed cluster, so we can directly have access to the worker nodes. Now once we run this command, it's going to spin up a cloud formation. Okay, and that's how it's going to create the EKS cluster for us. Let's run this command. Okay, there seems to be some typo, I believe, so it should be nodes, not node. Okay, so we say nodes hyphen minimum. Okay, now let's run this command again. Now once you run this, it start creating the EKS cluster. So backend, what it does is it's now using CloudFormation. Okay, and that CloudFormation is going to take few minutes before this cluster gets created. Okay, so if you want to see, you can go into your CloudFormation and then you can see. So let's say if I go to my CloudFormation stack. Okay, so you will see it creates this dev cluster creation is in progress, and here you can see that the cluster creation is in progress right now. Okay, so let this run, and basically the EKS cluster is getting created. So you will have to wait for some time for this cluster to be available. Okay, and yeah, so just wait for some time. This is in provisioning, creation is in progress. Okay, it's going to take few more minutes before this cluster is available. Okay, now this is a minimum requirement. Now if you are following along and you are having AWS account, then yes, you can do it this way. If you are not, then also it's fine. You can install the Kubernetes cluster on your laptop, or if you are following another cloud, you can use another cloud providers as well, and EC2 instances as well. So any of that will work fine. Okay, I just wanted to use the AWS because then you would be following more closely on how you are going to do in the corporate perspective in your company directly, so it would be very much aligned. Okay, so just give me few more minutes for let this complete, and then we are going to move ahead. Alright, so at this point the EKS cluster has been successfully created. Also the kube config was updated, so we don't need to specifically go ahead and create the kube config. If you are setting up on some physical server, then your kube config will not be there, so you need to update your config and create the config to access your kubectl cluster. Using kubectl access your Kubernetes cluster. Alright, at this point what we are going to do is we are going to install the ArgoCD on our VM. This is for accessing the ArgoCD over CLI. Okay. Now this is not necessary because ultimately we are going to install the ArgoCD within our Kubernetes cluster. But just in case, if you want to access using the command line and run certain commands directly onto the remote ArgoCD, you can use the CLI. That is how it works. Okay. So I'm quickly going to show you. So what we can do is we can simply use the curl -s capital SL and -o/usr local bin ArgoCD. This is where I want to install the ArgoCD binary, and I will take it from GitHub. Okay, so I will say github.com/argo project argo-cd/releases/latest download ArgoCD Linux AMD 64. Okay, this should download the binary. Now once the binary has been downloaded, we need to make it executable. Okay, so we are going to say usr local bin ArgoCD. Okay, and so this installs the ArgoCD CLI on our machine. That is basically in the Cloud Shell. Now what we are going to do is we are going to create a namespace for ArgoCD in our Kubernetes cluster. So we are going to simply say kubectl create namespace ArgoCD. This command is going to create a ArgoCD namespace inside which we are going to install the ArgoCD. Okay, so we can check this by doing kubectl get namespace. This should show us the ArgoCD namespace is there, okay, which has been created just now. At this point, we are good to go ahead and install the ArgoCD. For installing ArgoCD, you can directly say kubectl apply -f inside the namespace ArgoCD, and then you can refer to the YAML file which ArgoCD has provided. That is raw.github-user-content.com. This is basically the URL from which we are directly going to use it. Okay. We are going to install the stable version and manifest install.yaml. So basically this install.yaml is going to download the latest version of the ArgoCD at the time of running of this video and install it inside our Kubernetes cluster. So if I just run this, okay, I think there's a typo inside this. Let's fix the typo. Okay, there seems just a second. Raw.github-user-content.com Argo project CD stable manifest and install.yaml. Okay, actually the error is coming because -f should be here. Okay, and not here. We are going to remove it from here. It should not be here. Okay, now let's apply this. Now once you apply the configuration, it's going to create all the custom resource definition, deployments, network policies, stateful set. So basically everything which is required for creating the ArgoCD will be deployed inside your EKS cluster now. Okay, now at this point so basically it's installing the ArgoCD. Now ArgoCD has multiple components which are going to be created inside the namespace ArgoCD. So let's go ahead and take a look. We can simply say kubectl get all inside namespace ArgoCD. Okay, so once we do this, okay, it will show you all the deployment which was created. So basically these are all the deployments, and these deployment basically resulted in the replica set, and a stateful set was also deployed. And now if at this point you will see that all these pods has been created. Okay, all the pods for the ArgoCD has been created and they are inside the running state. And also you will see the services which are running here, okay, for the ArgoCD. So all these together are delivering your ArgoCD as a whole as an application, which is going to be running for applying the changes inside your Kubernetes cluster and implement GitOps workflow. Okay, at this point we have successfully installed the ArgoCD. Now we need to access the ArgoCD. Now for accessing the ArgoCD, there are two ways, because ArgoCD is right now inside Kubernetes cluster, so it's not exposed. So how you are going to expose it? Okay, so there are two ways. One is using the port forwarding that we all know. You can directly port forward any port and then you can access from your machine like that. Okay, till the time that command is running, then you can access the ArgoCD. But for our consideration, what we are going to do is, because this is a test environment, I'm going to use a load balancer, and that application load balancer will be in the public subnet, so I can directly access through using that endpoint of the load balancer itself. Now in order to do that, we need to patch ArgoCD. So what I'm going to do is, I will simply say kubectl patch service. Okay, which service? ArgoCD -server. This is the service we want to patch. Okay, when I say patch, I simply changing value. Okay, for our specification and saying that I want a type of load balancer. So once we pass this, what will happen? It will go ahead and it will create a load balancer. Okay, and basically that's integrated with the cloud provider. So since we are using AWS, so AWS load balancer will be created. Okay, so let's simply say we are going to say the under specification type which we are referring to is load balancer. Okay, okay, so basically when we run this patch command, it should go ahead and trigger and basically change this type to load balancer, which should start creating an application load balancer. Okay, so at this point you will see that the service has been patched. Now if we go here and if I show you the load balancers, okay, so it should show you that there is a load balancer. This is the load balancer basically which has been created by our ArgoCD. Now if you just want to access that at the command line, because we have been using the command line all the way through, so you can actually get the value here itself. So what you can do is you can simply say that okay, what I want to do is I want to export the value inside a variable. Okay, and that variable is ArgoCD _ server. Okay, this is our variable name, and what we are going to do here is we are going to say kubectl get service ArgoCD -server. Okay, and inside the namespace ArgoCD. Okay, and we are having JSON basically. It's a valid JSON, and what we are going to do is from this JSON we are going to use JQ. Okay, that's a query tool for JSON, and we are going to use this JQ to get the value. Okay, here itself, so that we don't have to copy and paste. Otherwise you can take it directly from the dashboard also. Okay, so we are going to say the status load balancer dot ingress. Okay, because this is acting as a ingress, and we are going to say the host name. Okay, so basically when you run this command, it should set the it should run this command and get this JSON value of the load balancer hostname, and it should update it inside this variable. Okay, let's run this. Now once you have run this, you can go ahead and check what's the endpoint that you have created. So you can simply say echo $argocd _ server. Okay, now once we run this, we see okay, this is our load balancer which has been created. Now another thing is we need a password. Okay, so for accessing so when you install the ArgoCD, by default what it's going to do is it's going to create an admin user. So we know that by default ArgoCD is going to create the admin user, but then we have to get the password also, right? We have the endpoint, we have the user, then we need the password also. For getting password, what you are going to do is you are going to say export. We are going to follow the same procedure and store the value inside a variable. So we will say okay, store the value inside a variable, and how it's going to store is we are simply going to say kubectl inside namespace ArgoCD get Okay, secret name is ArgoCD hyphen initial admin secret. Okay, so basically when you install it, it automatically creates a secret inside the secret. So that's where we are going to take this secret from, and we are going to take the JSON path and dot data underscore password. Okay, so we are taking the secret, and secrets manager is going to store it in an encrypted way using base 64. So we are going to say decrypt the secret and store it inside this variable. Okay, so the password will be going inside this variable. Now if you want to check the password, okay, so you can echo the password out. So you can simply say echo $argocd underscore password. Okay, so this is your password. Now what you can do is just copy this load balancer. Okay, and you can go inside a new tab and click on this. So it should at this point say proceed, and this should open your ArgoCD installation that you have just done. Okay, so here is the ArgoCD. It asks for the username and password. Username I told you by default is admin, and then password you can take from the from here. Okay, the variable which you have created. So just copy this, go to your browser and paste the password. Now say sign in. Okay, so once you sign in, it should load the ArgoCD for you. Okay, at this point you have successfully installed the ArgoCD. Now if you remember, I installed the ArgoCD over the command line also. Okay, so even from the command line I can give the command and access the ArgoCD. This is useful if you are using command line for managing certain things. Okay, so you can simply do from here also, like ArgoCD login, then you can say ArgoCD underscore server. So basically this is the first variable where we store the ArgoCD value, right? And then we can say username is admin, that we already know, and then password again we stored inside the variable. So we can say hyphen password is $argocd underscore password. Okay, and then we are going to say insecure because we are not using any SSL certificate, so it's just going to give some warning. Okay, so you can see admin has been logged in. So any command that I run, it will be applied on the ArgoCD. That's why I showed you how to install the ArgoCD. Now next thing is to deploy an application on this ArgoCD. So how are you going to deploy an application? Now for deploying the application, you need to create an application and tell about the path, like which repo you want to sync. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to have a repo here. Okay, again this is a public repo, so all of you can access, and this is basically having an application. I have created a manifest here, a deployment file and a service file, so you can directly sync this up with ArgoCD. Once you sync this up, ArgoCD should be able to pick up and deploy it. Okay, so now what we are going to simply do is, in order to proceed ahead, we need to create one manifest and provide all the information for the ArgoCD application to be created. And once we run this on the ArgoCD, then ArgoCD should go establish a connection, get the config files and everything, deploy it and create the deployment. Okay, so let's go ahead and write this. Okay, so you have a better understanding. I will just extend it to the full screen and let's clear this because all this has been done. Okay, now what I'm going to say is I'm writing a manifest. You can name it anything that you like, but I'm simply going to say I'm creating an ArgoCD manifest and I'm simply going to deploy a simple app called to do app. Okay, now all this app and deployment, all the code is there inside this repo, so feel free to access it. Okay, it's a public repo. Now let's start writing here. Okay, so we already know API version. Okay, and for ArgoCD, the API version is argo project.io/v1 alpha 1. Okay, then kind, this is basically an application that I wanted to create inside the ArgoCD. Okay, then metadata Okay. So we need to provide more information here. So I will say name of my application is to do app, and suppose we're deploying through Argo. Okay, then we need to provide the namespace. So I will say namespace ArgoCD. This is the namespace where my application will be created. Don't confuse it with the application namespace. This is for the ArgoCD metadata that we have provided. Now here we want to provide the project details, so I will say default. Okay, and then I'm going to provide a source. Okay, the source will be, okay, we are going to provide a repo URL. Okay, so the repo URL, I'm going to use my GitLab repo URL. Okay, here is the URL, okay, that I'm going to use. So we can simply use the HTTPS version of this repo URL. So I will go here, copy the HTTPS version, and I will just paste here. Okay, so this will be my repo URL. Then I'm simply going to put the target revision. Okay, and I will say head, and then path is manifest. Okay, and then I put the destination detail where I want to run this. Okay, so I will put the details here on my ArgoCD, which is running in the default namespace. So I will say kubernetes.default.service. okay, and then I'm going to put the namespace in which I want to deploy my application. Suppose I say my app is my namespace inside which I want it to deploy. You can put it according to your requirements. Okay, then we are going to put a sync policy of how we want the sync to happen on the ArgoCD. Okay, so in the sync policy we are going to configure the sync options. Okay, in the sync option we are going to say self heal should be true. What this means is that ArgoCD, if it see any changes in the state of the application, it will try to again sync the application back. Okay, and then we are going to say prune true. Prune true means if you are going to delete, it should have the delete permission. Okay, so this is all that you need to do. Okay, you can go ahead and save this, and then you just need to apply this. So you can simply say kubectl apply -f manifest, and it should be applied. Okay, just a second, I'm checking. So API version, what is the error it's giving? Application version b1 l1 cannot be altered as the applications flexing policy unknown field. Okay, it's complaining about this unknown field sync policy. Okay, I think there we have basically done a typo here, and it's not sync policy, it's sync. So C is missing, that's why it's complaining. Okay, so let's go ahead and do sync policy. Okay, because I have been typing, that's why this types of typo might occur. Okay, let's go ahead and again try to apply the config, and spec dot sync policies sync option dot boon unknown field self heal. Okay, just a second. So if we say under sync policies sync options, okay, under sync option we need to give because this namespace does not exist, right? So we want the ArgoCD to have the create permission also, so we will say create namespace, okay, true. This my app I never created, right? So that's why we need to give this create namespace permission also, and also we need to say automated, okay, and then we say under automated self heal and prune are there. So these are the options which we are passing to ArgoCD and saying that automatically it should take care and also create the namespace, because this my app namespace does not exist. Okay, now let's try to apply this again. Okay, it has applied this time. Okay, so what will happen now we just need to go inside the ArgoCD. Okay, and once we go here and we refresh, we see that to do app is here. Okay, so basically what it does is ArgoCD has applied the to do app. Now if we click on this one, so you can see that the pods has been created now. Okay, and now the last thing is once you apply this, it should create the load balancer. One more load balancer would have been created. So let's just go here, and once we refresh this, okay, it should show us one more load balancer for our application ingress has created. This is the one. Okay, and if you just copy this DNS name and open in the browser, you should be okay. I think if we just say HTTP, it says DNS not found. Okay, might be DNS hasn't propagated yet, is it? Just a second. If we this is a record. If we go here and okay, let's check if it's not able to resolve. So let's check on the cloth DNS lookup. It might take some time to propagate because this has just been created. So let's look up. Yeah, it's able to resolve if we open now. Okay, it's propagated now. So you can see DNS resolution does take some time. So my application has been loaded now. Okay, so that means we have successfully deployed this application using the ArgoCD. Okay, and any changes that we have to do, we just need to make the changes inside my application and here in the deployment file, and ArgoCD is automatically going to sync those changes. Okay, so if you just want to take a quick check, suppose if I come here and I just go ahead and increase the replica to 3. Okay, so I will say increased replica 3. Okay, so I can go ahead and commit these changes. Now since I commit these changes, okay, so ideally ArgoCD should look this, okay, that okay, my deployment has changed and it should automatically sync. So what you can do is you can simply say sync, okay, and then it's going to run a sync. Okay, and you see it created one more pod. So that's how basically, that's why we run ArgoCD, because it helps us implement the GitOps basically, and that's the main use of why we run ArgoCD in first place. Okay, so that's all that I wanted to show you inside this video. Okay, that's how you can run ArgoCD and deploy the application, and that's it. Okay, that's all for this video. I will come back in the future videos with more videos on this. If you have not subscribed to our channel, do subscribe to our channel to receive the latest notification about such videos. All right, thank you everyone. That's all for this video. Signing off.